Everyone's favorite stair covering. We got you covered today. Let's go. What's up, DIY Nation? Welcome back to YOUFLOOR, the channel bringing you tips and tricks to help you with your next flooring project. And today we are doing stair covers. That's right, there's many different ways to cover your stairs. And in our previous videos, you've seen where we did the 1-inch treads on top and then the risers, but sometimes that's not always feasible. So if you're wanting to cover your steps, let me tell you, there's Kappa tread, there's the 1-inch, and then there's what we're doing today. When I first did these about 10 years ago, the guy who invented them was calling them new stair. So that's the style we're going to be doing today. It's actual real wood. I got a couple tips and tricks to help you get through some of those tough situations. All right, I don't want to waste any time. Let's go jump right in. When we were laying the floor, we got to the part where we needed to come up to here, and that had to stop and find out where this stair nose was going to actually go. This is a stair nose they sent. And it's going to go flush like that right there. That looks beautiful. Then there's going to be a riser that goes right here, so it'll come up and tuck right up underneath that. So after doing a little research and marking all my numbers out and everything, I realized we're going to have to do something a little different on this. We usually just run the risers down and then flush to the top. But because that skirt board down there is sticking out so far, I'll show you what I'm talking about in a second, we had to move everything back so that it wouldn't protrude past that, which means I'm going to have to cut these off on the front. I know it stinks, but hey, we have the tools to do it, so that's what we're going to do. All right, this is the style of step we're going to be using. It's about, I think they're a 1/2 inch, 5/8 thick. But you can see where that sticks out. That part right there is what I'm talking about. We get down here to the bottom, that thing would stick out because that's what it butts up against. It's about 1 inch, so it would have come out to here. We were talking about curving them around and just trying to make it all stylish, but no, not worth it. So we shove everything back about 1/4 to 1/2 inch. Let's get started. All right, so first thing we're gonna have to set some of this stuff up. So a couple numbers we're gonna need to know. And this riser here it's 5/16 thick. All right, and then I checked down there on the tread, and from the back of the tread to where it butts the nose here, on the tread down there, it's 10.5 inches. So if you could see, when I butt this in right here, we're at 11.25. So when you're doing this, you're gonna have to kind of visualize ahead of the time. Make sure you don't make any mistakes. Cut too much off, or not cut enough off. Let's see, this being the riser, it'll come right there, and it'll come up flush to the top right there. This will be sitting on top of my tread. So we have to put that into account when we're cutting these off. So if I butt here, and I go 10.5, but then I add that back on, that's gonna be 10.75. Does that make sense? So when I add the thing back on, we need to come back. It's actually 5/16. So we need to come back off of our line, 5/16 off of our 10.5, and then once we put our riser on, it'll fart back out to that 10.5. Does that make sense?
Once I found my number of 10 3/16, I went to the box and grabbed the straightest board I could find. I checked it against my straight edge. Then I made a mark on both sides at 10 3/16. This will ensure that all treads are consistent.
Make me a little mark right there. Yeah, I know we did it with Sharpie, but at the pencil, it's a little bit more precise. And then these were about 39.25, so I just cut this thing about 39.1/8. Just enough to fit down in there. I can use it as a straight edge on all of them. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut all these off, and then we'll join back in with you guys. In just a second.
While I mark these out, take a look at these two sets of steps. The ones on the left were made in a factory workshop, and the treads are all perfectly 1 inch thick. However, the stairs on the right were built in the field, and these treads are 1.5 inches thick by 11.25 inches deep, but they are rough, so they are not always consistently straight or flat. This diagram represents a standard set of factory-built stairs. Very commonly, you shouldn't have to cut the nose off of these steps. The overhang is usually a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch, so you can cut your riser from tread to tread and install it nice and snug in this area right here. It should be flush or slightly sticking out past the old tread nose. If it's not, use shims to bump it out. Then when you place the new tread on top, it will cover the riser and the old stair nose completely for a very nice tight fit, and the nose does not protrude past the skirt board runner. From there, just repeat the process until you reach the top. Unfortunately, we had the 1.5 inch thick treads, and to make things worse, instead of 2x12s, they used 2x4s and 2x8s, making the nose stick out an extra 1/2 inch. And since the treads are 1.5 inches thick, we can't just put the risers in the same place we did in our previous example. The new stair cover is only 1.25 inches thick on the inside, so it doesn't cover the old tread completely. That's very important to know before you rip all your risers down and they're all too short. In this case, we will need to run the risers all the way up flush with the top of the treads and use first strips to bump out the back. But this would make the nose of our treads stick out way past the skirt board runner on both sides. So, you know what that means. Yep, we're gonna need a saw. Well, I started with the Sawzall, and then I tried the jigsaw, and then I went back to the Sawzall, and I can tell you what, I wasn't getting anywhere.
I have a better idea.
I decided that since I had a perfectly good table saw, I could just pull these things off, take them outside, and rip them down to the perfect width. I started with the pry bar, and then I took a cat's paw, aka a nail puller, just to pull the heads off. Then once the heads were up, I could stick the pry bar in there and finish them off. Using the pry bar as leverage in between the stringers really did help a lot. When I get done, I'll glue these and screw them back. That should help to alleviate any squeaking going forward. One down, 14 more to go. It was a slow go at first, especially towards the bottom, but as I started making progress, things really started to move, and I got to rolling.
Alright, so I need to figure out what angle this is. Tell you what, this thing comes in handy, huh? That is a... Now remember, on the single we use this side, on the miter we use this side. That's a 0. Wow. So that must be at 90 degrees then. See, it's on 0, so it's at 90 degrees. This side, let's see. Again, 90 degrees, square. All right, I guess I'm just gonna go through it, check all these, and then write them down. That way I can do a bunch at one time instead of going in and out of the house. Beautiful.
Now that I figured out a way to get the exact angle for these risers, I need to get a good measurement in between these walls. If you guys missed my video for tape measure hacks, I'll leave a link at the top right here. But basically, you can stretch your tape out from wall to wall and lock it down, like I've done here. Now write that number down, the one you see at the very edge of the tape. And then look at that little number on the side of your tape measure. Add those two numbers together and you have a precise measurement in between the walls. In this case, we had 36 1/8 wall to wall, and we would add 3 1/4, giving us a total of 39 3/8.
Anyway, I'm going to continue doing this up the stairs. Not much It's gonna change when we get these first strips here. Show you how I put those on and then put these risers on. See you in a minute.
Now that I have all the noses cut off and I have a consistent number on all my treads, it's time to figure out how big these first strips will be on the bottom. And one good way to do this is with a speed square. By resting it on the floor or the step against the next tread, I knew exactly how big to make the spacer. The gap is the perfect number.
First one's gonna be a little different. The height is 7, chicken in the middle, 7, chicken on the end, 7. Let's get it to 7. All right, going 7.
I went ahead and put the first strip on the bottom. I'll show you how to do that when I get a little bit higher. That way you can see a little more clear. But once the first strip is on, I'll glue the top. I'm not going to glue the bottom as there will be plenty nails going through it when we add the quarter round later. I made up a couple of these small shims so we can tweak it just in case it's a little out of square. Now for the good stuff. Tip number 2. I've had a lot of questions about this one. How to get the tread tight against the skirt board if it's out of square or it's cupped or bowed real bad. These steps come in a cardboard box bigger than the step. Get a straight edge and cut a couple pieces from fold to fold on the box. Now you have the perfect template the size of a tread. Next, cut a couple strips for the sides. It doesn't matter how wide they are, just so long as they are at least 11 1/4 to 12 inches deep. I cut these the width of the side of the boxes. I like to utilize everything, but they were about 3.5 inches wide. Okay, so obviously sometimes the wall's out of square and we forget our fancy stair wizard at home. So to get an exact replica of this step, I like to use good old hot glue. One other tip. I cut one end of my cardboard on a slight angle. This will allow me to get it up against the side, but won't hold me off the back if it is slightly out of square going inward. Next, it's time to glue the back and set it in place. Then we just simply repeat that process for the other side. And voila, we have an exact template for our tread.
See how she fits? Man, look at that.
It's always good to dry fit these things. You don't want to get glue all over them and then have to run them back through your table saw. But you do want to make sure you get plenty of glue on here. A few beads will do the trick. This is what will do most of the holding. I like to use urethane glue. It's very, very super strong. And then I put my nails in the back because that's where the risers are going to be hiding those, and then maybe 1 or 2 up through the front, 3 if it needs it, and then I can always use putty to cover those holes. Well, unfortunately, guys, we are out of time. Believe it or not, it took me 2 days to build these stairs, and it has taken me about 2 weeks and about 30 hours to edit this part 1. So if you guys appreciate all the hard work, please drop a like at the bottom. And if you want to see part 2, go ahead and hit that subscribe button because I'm working on that and it should be out very, very soon. And it's chock full of other tips to get these things scribed over on the side. Somebody else asked me another question about that, so we'll address that. And you'll get to see the final product. And we'll give you a hint who the famous person was. Alright guys, thanks for joining us on this one. Don't forget to check us out on the next one. And until next time, take care, stay safe. Peace.